Okay, so we now move on to our next plenary entitled World Floral Festivals. Yes, World Floral Festivals. Wow. As the name of our festival and conference entail, we are indeed going global, guys. The Faura project is going global. So for this plenary, expect to hear from excellent people from all over the globe, sharing the floral festivals that are unique to their respective hometowns. So it is my pleasure to present our first speaker for this plenary. So Miss Cosette Kremer did her doctorate on traditional May Day festivities and practices at the University of Western Brittany in the Center for Breton and Celtic Research, where she's also an associate researcher. This broader topic included many flower and greenery related customs in the British Isle and Europe, which led to closer investigation of French May Day practices, as well as research into specific faiths, such as the Lily of the Valley Festival in the town of Rambouillet. In this presentation, you will be able to take a glance at both the broad May Day customs involving Lily of the Valley in France, as well as the local town customs. And Cosette is especially pleased to be part of your efforts to bring people from around the world to bring testimony on flower festivals and how they have been pursued during the pandemic. So this is certainly a valuable contribution to tangible and intangible heritage conservation and promotion, as well as heightening our awareness of the necessity to encourage sustainable production of the flowers and plants that have brightened our lives during the health crisis. So again, let's give it up for Miss Cosette Griffin-Kremer.
Hello there. My name is Cosette Griffin-Kremer, and I want to talk to you today about the French Lily of the Valley festivities that will include the pandemic, a touch of botany, some sustainability, and the beauty of flowers. The name of Convalaria maialis, and of course Linnaeus, is Murgay in French. For the May Day holiday, this is the same as the French Labor Day, and one of the May festivals using the flower in the town of Rambouillet. I'll even compare it with another flower festival that has another flower, but above all, I want to celebrate what you see here, the beauty of the May Day, to show how it is used in florist art, and then to talk about its sustainability later on. The lily of the valley is especially known in France as a flower to announce the arrival of spring and for May Day, so you might wonder who buys it, that is, nearly everyone, and who sells it. That's professional florists and street vendors, since this is the only day of the year when street selling is officially permitted in France. It is emblematic of two groups that use its sale to help raise money, the French Red Cross and the French Communist Party. The way the flower is presented to customers can vary greatly from the simplest unwrapped or wrapped by the Red Cross to quite complex bouquets and arrangements, as you see here, potted plants, and then it moves on to the bouquets of all kinds. It is florists who work hard and quickly making bouquets, since all the sales are concentrated right around May Day, and especially on the day. The trends go, as you can see, from the classic rose of romance to novelty combinations with other flowers and floral decoration. We might also remember that the lily of the valley is the emblem of the French designer Christian Dior, so that business, like others, many others, order quite gigantic floral arrangements, much larger than the ones you see here, using the Murgay. And Christian Dior still features the flowers in their exclusive designer tableware. It is not florists' work, but the wildflower that is used in the Rambouillet Lily of the Valley festival, called the La Fête du Murgay, in mid-May. which involves many activities, and here are just a few: decorating shop windows, putting up green and white bannerlets, parades to show off the queen and her dauphines, accompanied by the traditional forest hunting group, including hunting horn players, a mass attended by a minority of the general spectators, a garden party where local and even national level political figures express their good wishes. Some events have been eliminated, such as the evening fireworks exhibit in a closed area of the park, which was thought to be too vulnerable to terrorist attacks. But above all, there is the float parade, with figures covered in the flowers and leaves of the lily of the valley. The Fête du Murgay was founded in 1906 by an especially enterprising mayor that you see at the bottom left, although it has antecedents in the late 19th and early 20th century. It has continued until today, but was cancelled in 2020 and 2021 due to the pandemic, as we shall see later. The Lily of the Valley Festival involves electing a queen and 2 dauphins in January of each year. But what I especially want to show you here is their Murgay bouquets. These bouquets fit the size of the flower. In fact, they're usually small nosegays, that is, easy to hold in the hand and that keep well, though they are replaced once or twice during the 2 days of festivities. Of course, they've changed over the years, but they always emphasize the colors of green and white. Giving and even showing the flower is traditionally thought to bring good luck or happiness, le bonheur. The Rambouillet festival floats made with the wildflower and its leaves. Here you can see a detail at the top right. But also the flower is given by people during all its blossoming time, and people go Murgay gathering in the forests where it grows for fun and to bring it to friends or family as a gift. Here is our Convalaria in its forest habitat. But many people also have it in their gardens or flower beds, and here you can see how it developed over the year in 2013, though it is far earlier in 2022 due to warm weather in February, March, and April this year. In 2013, top left you can see the old stalks in the snow. Then in the top middle you can see the tiny shoots coming up in front of daffodils. On the top right you can see the April shoots that are just beginning to form little bud-like blossoms. By the bottom left, in April, you can actually see the flowers coming in. In the center, May Day, they were beginning to develop, and by 14th May, they were well developed. But this year, it should be much earlier. There's a worldwide distribution of 3 species of wild Convalaria, with some disagreement and debate, as you can easily see here. And it has been introduced to nearly every continent where it can acclimate or be produced. It has even come to be considered an invasive in some parts of the United States. As you can see, for the distribution maps for France or for Great Britain and Ireland, its natural distribution cannot be shown too well on a national scale, but for France, it most definitely is more common in the northeastern half of the country. So, the wildflower is used on the float figures in the Rambouillet Lily of the Valley Festival, which usually had between 8 and 12 floats for the Sunday parade, with marching bands, street dancers, fun fairs, and other attractions. The Rambouillet Festival is charming, but I would like to stress that the scale of the Fête du Murgay is very small compared to perhaps the largest flower festival in Europe, the Bloemencorso in Zundert, in the far south of the Netherlands. If I've gotten the scale right, this goes with the comparison of the flowers, the lily of the valley and the dahlia, and they determine literally, materially, how the flowers can be worked with. What you see at the top here is the festival in Zundert. Simply the size of the dahlias as compared with the size of the lily of the valley, is also on about the same scale. In preparation of the dahlias for the Blumenkorso, hundreds of people prepare each float, often, as you see here in the very top center, inserting nails into the flowers, into the dahlias, so that the people who attach them need thumb protection to put the flowers onto the floats, and some even use a hammer in some cases. You can make out the heads of the nails in the center detail photographed. On the contrary, in the Rambouillet float building, the tiny flowers and leaves are pasted on, often with the leaves folded in a special way to add texture and depth. The next question is, where do the flowers come from? Individual gathering in Rambouillet and both gathered and commercially produced flowers are used for May Day in France. Since the lily of the valley is famous for being kept cool until forced to bloom, the quality of the rootstocks is paramount, and the world's best producers are mainly in northern Germany. They are experts in using applied botany in a long-term production process that involves selection by experts of roots that will produce flowers when thawed, as compared to other roots to be replanted for the next growing season. In the center cutaway, you can actually make out the embryonic flowers, and there is even more subtlety involved. An expert tradition has built up since the beginning of the 19th century, so that the finest feelers, often ladies, can distinguish between the plants with a future flower stem and those without. They can also make the distinction between poor bloomers with stems that will blossom from bottom to top, so not all at the same time, and the best quality, when all the bells blossom nearly at the same time. This comes from a long process of observation and sharing of knowledge, either by direct experience or through the many publications such as the classic early 20th century Bertno, or the many flower growers' professional magazines over the years. This flood of lily of the valley brings up the question of whether the gathering of the wildflower and the high-end production are sustainable. Economically, for the commercial producers, where there has been much consolidation, and many have gone out of business in recent years, and then ecologically for the wild plants. In France, permission to gather the flowers differs from one large region to another and is regulated by the prefecture system according to frequent botanical surveys. But in all cases, for the wildflowers, the official recommendations are always to cut the stems, never to uproot them. Life before the pandemic. As you can see from the customers crowding around the display of May Day Murgay. Years ago, it seems, the pandemic hit both commercial operations and individual gathering very hard. For the commercial operations in large supermarkets, and especially for the florists, there has been lots of innovation and resilience, and this seems generally to have been successful, thanks to the use of, this is an English term in French, the drive, like driving into a McDonald's, or click and collect practices. That was possible for individual street sellers. That was impossible for individual street sellers in 2020, but officially permitted again in 2021, although in that case it was each town that could decide on that independently. And bottom right, you say a lifelong individual seller protesting about the prohibition in 2020. As for the festival in Rambouillet, alas, it was cancelled in both 2020 and 2021. During that time, it was adapted and went virtual so that in 2022, the January election of the Queen and Dauphines did not take place during an evening ball with several hundred attendees, a dance band, and music until 1 o'clock in the morning, But in the local cultural center, with a small number of participants and only 4 candidates instead of the usual 10 or 12. But all of them were elected to show the town's solidarity with the girls who will represent Rambouillet in 2022. As you can see, people were even able to let their masks down just long enough for the election results and the photographers. In 2020 and 2021, there was considerable effort to keep the festival going virtually, with retrospectives on its recent history on the town television, online interactive games with prizes, and it is now scheduled for mid-May as usual, this year in 2022, though with only 6 floats, the usual music groups, and other events such as the fun fairs. Now, there's a subject that we cannot really touch on here, and that is beauty. This is just to remind you that the lily of the valley, like the lady lilies, is a central feature of much religious and secular art, not to mention the admirable tradition of botanical art. Each of these is an enormous subject in and of itself. Thank you, and with all my best wishes for the Congress, from Cosette.
Yes, thank you so much, Miss Cosette, for your talk. It is so nice to hear that May Day festivities are slowly going back to normal now as the world is also going back to normal through initiatives like Click and Collect and the virtual election of the Queen. I'm so happy to know that this May there are already preparations in play for going back to face-to-face activities. Again, thank you so much, Ms. Cosette, for letting us know the history and background of the flower lily of the valley.
All right, so now we move on to our next speaker, who is the president of Pacific Dialogue Foundation and Technopian Philippines Corporation, Mr. Yavuz Selim Sirinoglu. Respectively, Pacific Dialogue Foundation is a non-stock, non-profit, educational, and cultural foundation established by a group of Filipino and Turkish volunteers in 2011 that seeks to build and foster relationships between and among people of diverse backgrounds. He was also the vice president of this foundation back in 2015 to 2017. While for Technopian Philippines Corporation is a Philippines-based corporation in which he administers as a president since 2013. Additionally, he held other administrative and academic positions. He was the corporate secretary of the Turkish Chamber of the Commerce of the Philippines back in 2014 to 2016, and a lecturer at the Center of International Studies in University of the Philippines, Diliman, for the subject The Eurasia Melting Pot, an introduction to Turkish culture and society. Let's all give a warm virtual welcome to Mr. Sirinoglu.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for your kind introduction, Gabriel and Dr. Lebe, of course. Thank you for your invitation to take a place in here. Well, as it is mentioned, I'm not a botanist, nor flowers are actually my kind of research topic usually. However, when I received the invitation, if I can talk about it, about tulips in Turkey, because we have a festival over there, I gladly accepted it, and I received some documents from my botanist friends, and I did my own research, so I will try to present it as best as I can. Am I allowed to share my screen here? Let me try.
Yes, you may.
Yes, it is. Okay, so can you see my screen, please? Can you please confirm?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Okay. So I'm supposed to talk about the Tulip Festival happening in Istanbul between April to May. But before we go there, I will tell about why tulip is an important flower in Turkey. What kind of history we have with tulip. And apologies in advance because I will be using the Turkish terms also. So please try to get familiarized with the words. So Let's start with the etymology. And first of all, tulip in Turkish means lale. So please keep that in mind because I will be using it, often in my next slides. Well, lale originally is a Farsi word coming from lal, and lal means red actually. And Europeans originally called lale or tulip lily strokes, but according to the notes of Swedish botanist, a scientist, Professor Rudbeck, later on from lily strokes, Europeans or in general Westerners took the tulip from the word, an Ottoman word, tulbent or turban, which means scarf. My next slide, I will be talking about the stories of lale or tulip in mythology. So I will give 3 examples. From Farsi mythology, how the tulip came into the world in the first place. They said there was a dewdrop, a frost, on a leaf, and a lightning fell on the leaf, and the frost bite or the frost or the dewdrop caught on fire, and then again the frost pieces, frozen the fire, froze the fire, and that frozen fire later on became the flower which we know as tulip nowadays. In Turkish story, there are famous lovers, Ferhat and Shirin. And Shirin, the lady, her parents are the governor in the city, in the town, and they don't allow, these two to be together. And they give a condition to Ferhat to, for them to be together. And they tell the city is scarce, is facing the scarce of water, drought. So bring water from the mountains so you can be together with Shirin. And Ferhat, literally makes a canal, on the from the mountain to the city. He what do you call that? He gets a shovel and other equipment, and he makes a way for the water to fall, to pass down. However, before he can complete, when he's about to complete, they gave him a false information that Shirin has already passed away from a sickness. And so Ferhat lives a miserable life from that on, from after that. And he goes on, deserts that he cries for his whole life, for the rest of his life. So that's the legend. And it is said wherever his tears dropped, with all those feelings flowing over, those tears turned into tulip later on. So that's the Turkish version. And in Greek mythology, the famous god of love, Aphrodite, and she has a mortal lover named Adonis, and Adonis bled to death, in arms of Aphrodite, according to legend. And wherever his blood, again fall down, a red flower bloomed, which is also believed to be tulip. All right, so let's talk about the symbols, and I'll try to, categorize them. So if we look at, what tulip colors, symbolizes when we present it to another person. Well, red tulips, as usual, like the roses, they mean the passion of love. And a white tulip means or represents the purity of love. A purple tulip, represents nobility. Yellow tulip is a bit tricky because it could be a good thing or a bad thing, or it can mean joy, or it could mean a hopeless love. And a black tulip, represents rarity. And a striped tulip is presented to a person usually to praise the beauty of their eyes. Aside from that, there is another kind of tulip that's also known as reverse tulip that you can see on the left bottom of the screen. They look down instead of looking at the sky, and they symbolize the tears of Mama Mary, the Virgin Mary. And it mostly grows in a place called Hakkari in Turkey. Hakkari is on the southeastern part of Turkey, border to Iraq and Iran. And in Turkish culture, we usually try to interpret our dreams as much as we can remember. And seeing a tulip in your dream usually means a good thing. It means the dreamer, the person who dreams about tulip, has a pure and altruistic heart, a good heart, and he will hopefully find happiness and love soon. All right. So I'll talk about the journey of tulip, where it came from and how did it spread to the world. Well, originally tulip is seen in Central Asia. And when we look at the Turkish history, that you don't actually see traces of tulips in Rome or during Byzantium time. But when you look at the Seljuk palaces, Seljuk is the first Turkish colony came to Anatolia, or known as Turkey right now. They also transferred, they also migrated from Central Asia to Turkish land. And Seljuk is the first empire we had over there. And when you look at their palaces, tulips are a common motif that you can see around. Well, for those who are into literature, you might be familiar with the poet Mevlana Celaleddin Rumi, and he is also believed to be the first poet who uses tulips, in his poems. Well, when we look at the Ottoman Empire during the time of Selim II, the Sultan Selim II, about 300,000 tulip bulbs are brought from Crimea, which you may nowadays hear on the news, with the Ukrainian war. Excuse me. And after this transfer of 300,000 tulip bulbs, the tulip became a common flower in Istanbul and in Turkey. And when we look at 1520, we see that tulip bulbs were started to hybridize, and different species of tulips are started to be grown. And the first botanist that we know who hybridized the tulips and bloomed them is Şeyhül İslam Ebu Suud Efendi. He is a Muslim scholar, and he is the religious advisor of Süleyman the Magnificent, a very well-known Sultan of Ottoman. And in the 16th century, Süleyman the Magnificent was the one who sent the tulip bulbs as a gift to the Holland king, or the Netherlands, king of Netherlands, for the first time. And that's how, in fact, we know nowadays tulips as a flower in Netherlands, but that's how actually they got the tulips in the first place. And from Netherlands, it spread to Europe and to Canada and eventually to the whole world. Between 16th to 17th century, it is very well known that there were many tulip fields between Istanbul and Edirne. And when we look at Edirne, it's the city we have borderline to Europe nowadays in Turkey. And Evliya Çelebi, a very well-known voyager of Ottoman history, he is said to traveled, walked like every corner of Turkey or Ottoman that time, and he has a famous book, Seyahatname, where he wrote down his notes during his trips, and he noted over there that almost all the houses in Istanbul during his time were growing or blooming tulips. Well, also Sultan Murat IV is said to planted, he said to planted 56 rare species of tulips himself, and some of these tulip bulbs some of these tulips are known to be the only sample of their kinds. While also during the Ottoman Empire, between these centuries, 16th to 17th centuries, they even was established an organization named Encümeni Danışı Şükufe to inspect and register new species of tulips, new kinds of tulips. Well, the next one I will be talking about Tulipomania, and in fact, this is interesting. In Netherlands, they profited from the tulips most, and in 1637, because of the high prices of the tulip bulbs, the local stock market broke down, and many people declared bankruptcy because of this, and because most of their economy depended on tulips that time. And this occasion, noted down in the history or known as the first speculative bubble in history in terms of economics. Well, hard to believe, but it is even noted that in many resources it is confirmed. During this period, a tulip bulb cost as much as a house, and some traders even offer hectares of lands in exchange of a single tulip bulb. All right. When we look at the Ottoman history, we have different eras, different periods like growing period or dormant period, and we also have one period named Tulip Era, and that's a 12 years of period, and probably this is the only time you cannot see any conflicts or any war in Ottoman history. And that 12th year is said to be the most time of joy and pleasure, and it is not that like every house were like growing tulips at that time, and that's why it's called Tulip Era. And according to notes, more than 2,000 species, more than 2,000 kinds of tulips were planted and grouped in this 12 years period. And of course, this kind of lifestyle created some imbalance and some conflicts or complaints from the impoverished community, and they ended this era with a rebellion known as Patrona Halil. And during their rebellion, these poor communities, they destroyed some palaces, they destroyed some of the edifices, some showy buildings and luxuries, and of course also tulip gardens, unfortunately. All right, so now I'll talk about what does tulip mean in Islam or in religion. Well, okay, so in religious scripts for Islam, tulip symbolizes Allah. Allah is the Arabic word for God, that we accepted him, and rose symbolizes Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. I wanted to put it here since it shows another beautiful flower. Okay, here I will be using lale, the Turkish word, more because the research is more on like in Turkish actually. So these notes, the religious part, based on the Turkish word. Okay, lale, or sorry, tulips come from the same root as Allah, God, or hilal, crescent moon, and that's why it's considered holy. And hilal is also another symbol of Islam, just as lale. And hilal is also the flag of sigil of Ottoman Empire. So here I will try to give you a bit information for Arabic. So you see three words in here, Allah, hilal, and lale. So in here there are three characters in here. The first one is elif or aleph, the stem look like one. The second one is L. Well, they might look a bit different according to the place of the characters in the word. However, these three are actually the same characters. Elif is A or A usually. Lam, Le or La, and H, Allah. So Elif, Hilal, and Lale, even though there is a H in here, it's not pronounced, it just makes you prolong the last character. So La, Le, that's why we prolong the Lale over there. So A, L, H, they all make these three words, Allah, Hilal, and Lale. And that's why they are all, because they're all sharing the same root as Allah. Hilal and Lale, crescent moon, and tulips are also common figures for Islam, and that's why they are accepted as the same value, the word of Allah. Okay, well, when we look at the numbers of petals, original tulip has 6 petals that you can count, and these 6 petals is said to represent the 6 pillars of Islam, which are believe in one God, believe in the prophets, believe in the holy books, believe in the angels, believe in destiny, and believe in the judgment day. So these 6 pillars are practically are associated with the 6 petals of tulip. And the 6th verse of the first chapter of Quran, chapter Fatiha, which we Muslims recite 40 times a day during our prayers, says, "Oh God, please guide us along the straightforward path," just like the straightforward stem of a lale or tulip. And if you look at the what do you call them, the leaves of the tulip, they also look like they're opening their hands towards the sky, like prayers, like the way we open our hands during a prayer. And that is also why it is said, Lalia looks like, reciting the 6th verse of the, first chapter of Quran. He is also, or it is also, praying in the same way to stay on the straightforward path. All right. And also, I show you the character a while ago, the first character of Allah, which is Elif. I told you it looks like a straightforward stem. And yeah, it is also why, tulip is symbolizing Allah, because the stem of tulip, looks in a similar way. All right. Another notes telling us or showing us, we have the whirling dervishes who are dancing in a trance, for their religious belief. And the way they whirl, turn around, or, the way they dance and ask for prayer is, they are asking with one hand from God, with, their humble stance, with a leaned or, a bended neck. And with the other hand, they're giving it to community. And in here, the first picture, the one on the left side, you can see tulip sometimes also looks like the same. They also have a bended neck, or, a leaned on neck. So, that's why they also say, like, a tulip or a lily is also, presenting his humble self, in front of the Creator. And in graveyard stones, a tulip figure is commonly known or commonly seen because, as I said, tulip is one of the represent what do you call a symbol of of Allah, of the God. And in Selimiye Mosque, which is one of the greatest structures in Istanbul, built by the famous architect Sinan, in Edirne, the city bordering to Europe. It is covered with tiles, and 99 of those tiles are showing a lale figure, a tulip figure, and 99 number is chosen because we give 99 attributions, or we have 99 names for the god. So that's why they also use 99 tulip motifs on their walls, and one of them is the reverse tulip that I showed you a while ago. All right, so let's take a look at the tulip in art. And it is a common thing, we see tulip in many forms of art, and for centuries, you can see them in mosques, in palaces, in over fountains, or in other structures, or you can see them on carpets or tiles, like I showed you a while ago, or it's very common also on the emperors or on sultans, clothes, on their shoes or on their boots. And it is also very common to be used in teshib art, which is illuminated manuscript, and ebru, which is water marbling. And I'd like to show you a short video of of this example, how ebru is made. I will play it very fast to save time. I hope it doesn't bother you. So this is actually a traditional art in Istanbul, in Turkey. I hope you can see my screen, the video playing.
Yes, we see the video.
All right, great. Thank you very much for the confirmation. So the flower shapes they mix are very common, and I think tulip might be the basic one, because every time we see an ebru art, tulip shape is there for sure. I'll fast forward it a bit so we can see it in shorter time. All right. So I just wanted to share, one sample of, water marbling, with tulip shape. And as I said, if ever you have a chance to go to Turkey, in touristical places, you might see an example, a live example of that probably. All right. Next and lastly, I will be talking about the Tulip Festival happening in Istanbul. Originally, or the first time, it was started by the Istanbul City Hall in 2005, and ever since they have been organizing it annually between April to May in a place called Emirgan Park. That's Sarıyer part of Istanbul, if ever you have a chance to go there. And during the festival, they present more than 120 species of tulips and other flowers, not just tulips. And for the recent years, estimated number of tulip bulbs planted is more than 30 million, as far as I was able to find out. And of course, it's an attraction not just for the local but also for international tourists. And as a matter of fact, when I had my Korean friends, visiting me in Istanbul back in 2011, it happened to take place in April, so we had a chance to go and see this festival together. But a note for that, it lasts long for 4 weeks. But however, after second week, some of the flowers have already started, withering. So the best time to see them is probably the first 2 weeks of the festival. However, it doesn't apply to 2022 because the climate change has really affected the weather, and even in April, normally we shouldn't be seeing snow anymore. It should be done by the first 2 weeks of March, but this year they seen snow until the end of March. So the flowers, as far as I've read, tulips only bloomed like almost like third and fourth week of April. So unfortunately, this year the festival hasn't been very successful, but hopefully, if you have chance, in following years, I would recommend to visit at a normal time, second or third week of April to be sure. So some pictures from the festival. Unfortunately, I couldn't find my own pictures, so I will just be showing you whatever I was able to find online. So these are what I have, and I will be finishing my presentation with a joke, with a quote. So roses are red, but tulips are quirky, and don't go to Holland and see them in Turkey. So that's what I can say. And thank you very much for the invitation and listening me, and I hope you enjoyed it.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Selim. That was a really insightful presentation with regards to tulips in Turkey. And I was really captivated by the artistical, historical, cultural, and even economical value of tulips during for Turkey, for the Turkish people. And because of that, tulips are actually my favorite species of flower. So I was really enticed with it. And with that, my appreciation for tulips grew. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Salam. Honestly, I really like tulips as well, and I really want to see like a bed of tulips someday in my life. So now I know where to go, and that's Turkey. So thank you so much, Mr. Salam. Okay, so now I think we can move on to our next speaker. So our next speaker is Miss Bernadette Escalona Cooper, the founder and chairman of the Global Artists Creative Collaboration for Empowerment, or GACCE, USA, the first and only PhilAm-initiated state-registered art organization considered as an influencer for the arts. She possesses a bachelor's degree in fine arts, master's degree in instructional technology, and a doctorate degree. Her exposure in the academe, local and international, schools, colleges, and universities of fine arts and the art circle has given her a solid foundation to be an authority in the field of arts. She's an author, researcher, speaker, and a faculty member, thesis and dissertation panel member, and a school administrator. She's a well-sought curator and a member of the AAMC, or the Association of American Museum Curators. From 2012 to present, she's a resident artist for the Alameda Artwork Studios in San Jose, California, the largest hub for Bay Area artists, a project director of Face the Race project under the New York Foundation for the Arts, a commissioner and advisory board member of the Social Services Commission, Santa Clara County in California, USA. So again, let's welcome our next speaker, Ms. Bernadette Escalona Cooper.
Hi, good day again, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in different parts of the world. Can I share my presentation?
Yes, miss.
Okay, so let me, it's not open yet. I need to open my, oh gosh. Hang on a second. Can I just open my file? I need to go out. Okay, there you go. There you go. Okay. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah. Can you see it?
We can see it now, miss.
But it's something, it's not the full screen. How do I put this in
Not
full
yet.
screen? Okay.
At the bottom part of the screen there, by beside the magnifying
slideshow.
I might screw up.
Or you can press slideshow and yeah, press slideshow. Yes, and yeah.
There.
Where is it at? I cannot see. It's not showing here.
In the lower part, you can look into the lower right also. There are the last button before the size of the last button. It's a slideshow prompt also there.
Is that the one?
No, ma'am. The one on your
the one encircled.
The one there.
Okay, there you go. So, oh, what happened again? Okay, so good afternoon, good evening, all the greetings in the world. It's good evening here in California, in this part of USA. This afternoon, I was tasked to present a narration of Rose Flower Festival in the USA. Okay, that was the title that was given to me. But let me give you a backgrounder of what this is all about. The Rose Flower Festival happens in different part of the states of United States of America, but were given different names. But it emanated from, or it was born in a place called Pasadena, California, where the Rose Flower Parade Festival was born. Okay. Now, in San Jose, it was given another name. I would like to zero in with San Jose, California, because that's where I am. And then maybe a little later on, I'm going to give you a profile of how it came about to be Rose Flower Festival. Okay, here in California, the Rose Flower Festival is known as Rose, White, and Blue, 4th of July Parade, San Jose, California. The significance of this parade or festivity is very important to the history of San Jose, considering that they have been dealing with roses as theme in most of the festivals and even entertainments and even what activities you have here in California. To sum them all up, it has been 120 years already. Okay, so the main objective of this Rose, White, and Blue 4th of July Festival is family-friendly, family-friendly parade, which combines two themes called Independence and the Roses. This is a way of remembering and honoring the rich history of San Jose neighborhood. Now, that neighborhood that is being mentioned here is called the Rose Garden neighborhood or the Alameda neighborhood in San Jose. Okay. A person named Larry Clark, an expert on the historic district of San Jose's Rose Garden neighborhood, revived this tradition of the Rose Parade, which has its beginnings in 1896, but it did not begin here in San Jose. It began in Pasadena. Okay, so this is how the parade would look like. They have banners, they have flags, but in each of the carriages and the cars, they have roses decorated on each of the vehicles. Now, why roses, not any other flowers? You would think that roses are very important. To tell you honestly, roses grows everywhere here in California, even in your own backyard. Not only in California, actually in the whole of the United States. And so the rose became the national flower of the United States, but not California. There is still a state flower. The California state flower is known as poppy. Okay, but it's not as popular as the rose because the rose has been used to highlight any festivities here in the United States and California. Now, let us go back to the history of this Rose Parade festival. In 1890, the Valley Hunt Club members, led by Charles Frederick Holder, sponsored the so-called first tournament of roses in Pasadena, in California. Now, why is it called the Tournament of Roses? Thinking that there is an abundance of flowers, specifically roses, in California, they thought that, the club thought that, why don't we highlight and showcase the abundance of these flowers so that in the Tournament of Roses, upon entrance, they would be seen, they would highlight the abundance of roses, the different species of roses. And all these roses have been decorated in all the carriages and roses and cars during that time. Now, come 1896, it was not until after 6 years that the Parade of Roses was created in San Jose, and they called that during that time the first Rose Carnival. So this Rose Carnival was a 4-day celebration of San Jose's festivity known as selecting the Rose Queen. I saw the presentation in France a while ago, and I would recall that this holds true in the Philippines also. In 1908 until the 1930s, there was this Carnival Queen that they have. I saw that in the picture of my aunt. My aunt was a Carnival Queen. And so all of these festivities have been duplicated, have been imitated for one reason, to bind the community together. Okay, so in 1896, it was a 23-year-old girl by the name of Lilian Rhea who was declared as the first Rose Queen in the first Rose Carnival in San Jose. Come 1901, the city of San Jose planned a Rose Theme Parade in honor of President McKinley, who visited that year. And the entire Alameda district, where the Rose Garden community is, had their float and their cars covered with roses. Where do they get the rose and the roses? Okay, that is a question. No problem, because they grow that even in the backyards of their communities before. And as a matter of fact, there was a public garden wherein which they cultivate the flowers, more specifically roses. And that was the start of breeding the different varieties of roses. Okay. In 1926, it was given another name, and they call it that time the Fiesta De Las Rosas, a Spanish theme about roses also. So what happened during this Fiesta de las Rosas? The schoolyards and street corners alike, all of them were decorated with roses, flags, and banners. And then thousands of roses have been planted. Thousands of roses have been planted, and that was the start. So giving meaning to the parade that the Santa Clara Valley was the rose garden of the world. And you would be surprised what happened after that. And so the parade boasted 87 floats, 10 bands, 200 mounted riders on a variety of decorated cars. So decorated cars, mostly decorated with roses. About 250,000 spectators were attracted to this grand floral parade. And so it has also become tourist attraction. In 1927, this is what I'm saying, they planted, they bred different varieties of roses. The Rose Garden was founded, okay? What was the Rose Garden? It's a 5.5-acre gated garden community of 4,000 roses and over 200 varieties. Now, as you can see there, that is the marker now. The public garden was enclosed in a gate, and it became a historic landmark. So in 1931, the municipal Rose Garden was institutionalized. The San Jose Heritage Rose Garden was unexpectedly a jewel in the midst of urban center of the city. It is here. This is where I live. This is the area where I live. And it's a huge garden of 5.5, in which it is in the middle of the city itself. Okay, so that in 1969, the Fiesta de las Rosas ended, and who knows what happened after that. So there was a lull there. However, this is the Rose Garden now. This is the landscape of the Rose Garden, which is a historic landmark. This is where most of the festivities which has something to do with roses, when they wanted to highlight the roses, this is where they would get it, aside from the roses that they would grow in their gardens and in different backyards. Okay, so this is how the rose garden would look like inside. Okay, this is the reason why there are parades, there are festivities, there are festivals, because of the different varieties of roses. Okay. This is also part of the rose garden which grows the different varieties of roses. As you can see on the left side, it's a huge landscapes wherein there are different rows of varieties of roses grown in different areas of the whole garden. And the seat, if you wanted to have a picnic there, you can sit on the ground, and the vacant seat there, and the entrance at the back on your right. Okay, I'm not going to acknowledge anybody on these pictures because these are my personal pictures, which I have taken just recently, because I took specifically a picture of that chair where my mom and I used to sit together. My mom just passed away, and so it was nostalgic for me to go back every so often to the rose garden because that's my mom's favorite hangout. Okay, going back to Pasadena, it all started with what we call Rose Bowl game. So what is a Rose Bowl game? The Rose Bowl game is an annual American college football ball game, usually celebrated on January 1st, which is a New Year's Day, at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California. What is a ball, a Rose Bowl? It is a concave-shaped stadium where the ball game is held. Okay, it's an open field. Now, the Rose Bowl, before its festivities, the organizers then thought of the Tournament of Roses, also in Pasadena. So they were thinking like, why don't we make a festival before the Rose Bowl game so people would come and enjoy and be entertained? And so the Tournament of Roses. So the parade was the parade was not anything else but about roses. They would like to showcase the different kinds of roses and varieties. And until such time, they named it Rose Parade, and that is what it is named now. Now, the Rose Parade, now, where did they get the roses now? The different carriage and different floats have been ostentatious in their design, and then highlighting and what do you call this, immersing the roses. And so it is a narrative of who the float is all about and what the float is all about. So there is a story there, but most of the decorations there were roses. So this time, probably the roses are not enough to cover the entire float, which is ostentatiously displayed. And so Pasadena now, they import different flowers and roses from different countries. So they don't only put roses in their floats and carriage, but they also include the different varieties of flowers, but without taking away the name of the rose as the Rose Parade. Okay. Now, this is an example of how the Rose Parade would look like now. So I would like to what do you call this, quote where I got it from, because I don't have my actual picture of the Rose Parade. You see how ostentatious it is now? So it is not about roses anymore. It is about the parade of the different sectors in the community who would like to participate, highlight who they are and what they do. But of course, the roses are still there, and the roses are now the different kinds of flowers. Another showcase of the float. Look. So it tells a story. It's not about the rose anymore, but it tells a story of who participated there, but still being garnished with the different roses and the different flowers, because that's where the name come from, and that is what they celebrate before the Rose Bowl game. Okay, next, you have there how ostentatious the floats would become every year. Last year, the Rose Parade did not celebrate anything because of the lockdown and the advent of what we call COVID. But the roses has continuously become endemic. Anywhere you go, there are roses. And roses you can grow very easily in the kind of weather that we have here in California. specifically because this is what you call the Golden State, and they wanted that kind of weather in California. Now, so going back again to Rose, White, and Blue 4th of July parade, the Rose Parade that happens in different parts or some of the states here in America is given a name. And usually they would attach that into a larger celebration of a national holiday. Here in San Jose, they would celebrate it during the 4th of July, which is the Independence Day of America. The Rose Ball Parade, the Rose Parade in Pasadena, they would celebrate that on January 1st, usually on New Year's Day. And I think there's one in Colorado, in Denver, and some other states. They would call it another name, and they would attach it to a national holiday so that it is given more emphasis and highlight of what they would like to present and share a story to the community. Now, the historic here in San Jose, the historic community celebration brings the different residents, businesses, and organizations here in San Jose and the Greater Bay Area. Now, it is nothing short of expressing that the celebration itself is a celebration of diversity, public spirit, city's floral and agricultural heritage. So aside from celebrating heritage, the heritage of a particular place or city or state, it is also celebrating diversity because America is highly diversified. It does not belong to the white, it does not belong to the black, it does not belong to the brown, but everybody is here. Okay, so that is the intent of the celebration of the Rose Parade. Still, it's about flowers, but the flowers has something to say about the different narratives that each float and presentation would like to show to the public. So with that said, I would like to make mention of the word floriography. In the 1920s or earlier than that year, they adopted during the Victorian period, the word floriography. They use flowers to communicate. And with that communication, each person, especially a man and a woman, would understand what that communication indicates with the kind of flower that the man gives the woman or the woman gives a man. So there is a hidden meaning in all of the flowers that we see, but in the USA, there is a deeper meaning of what the roses are all about, and that is the diversity of the United States of America. With that said, I would like to end my presentation. I hope you learned something from what I have presented. Good day again, and thank you to all the organizers, and thank you for inviting me and considering me for this international conference. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss Bernadette. You know, Rose, I mean, I'm sure you know po since Pinoy kahin po. You know, rose is one of the most common flowers you see here in the Philippines, especially during special occasions like Valentine's or birthdays. So it's very, very interesting to hear and learn more about its cultural and social significance there in California. So again, thank you so much, Miss Bernadette.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, now we move on to our next speaker, and he is our last rather. Mr. Sushil Srivastava is a BTech chemical engineer and MBA in marketing from the prestigious institute in Asia. He has worked in India, Malaysia, the Philippines, and Dubai, UAE with Fortune 500 companies. He is a serial entrepreneur, art collector, and angel investor. Due to his passion in the fine art, he ventured into art business. He has organized many art shows and art camps in India, Malaysia, Dubai, New York, and Singapore. He has a wide collection of Indian contemporary and modern art. He does not have any formal education in art, but due to his voracious reading and research habits, he has in-depth knowledge about Indian and European art. He is in the art business since 2008, working as art consultant, and his company, Art International, which is a leading contemporary art company based in India. Art International has participated in many art fairs and has organized many art exhibitions in India and abroad. It is my pleasure to present Mr. Srivastava.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone from India, Philippines, and other countries based on the time zone. It's a great opportunity for me to be one of the speakers in this International Flores de Mayo Festival and Conference 2022. I'm really thankful to Miss Bing Famoso and Dr. Hani Achanzar for giving me this opportunity. Due to COVID-19 pandemic, for last 2 years, most of the events were organized either virtually or being cancelled all over the globe. The flower festivals are well celebrated in India, and some of the flower festivals are one of the largest festivals in Asia. For last 2 years, those festivals were organized virtually and dedicated to Corona fighters. This year in 2022, all those festivals are happening physically and would be well celebrated in India. I would like to discuss a few important flower festivals that is happening every year in India. The Tulip Festival, Srinagar, the Rose Festival, Chandigarh, the Flower Show, Utti, Dasra Flower Show, Mysore, International Flower Festival, Gangtok, Cherry Blossom Festival, Shillong, Lal Bagh Flower Show, Bangalore. I would like to discuss all these flower festivals one by one in this speech. The Tulip Festival Srinagar, India, that is happening every year at Indira Gandhi Tulip Garden, Srinagar. The time is March and April of every year for 15 days. Indira Gandhi Memorial Tulip Garden is Asia's largest garden of tulips. Visiting this garden during the flower festival, one will witness around 70 kinds of tulips, namely standard tulips, double bloom, parrot tulips, fringe tulips, bicolor standard tulips, Rembrandt, lily flowering tulips, along other flowers. The beautiful backdrop of snow-capped mountains and breathtaking Dal Lake makes the overall viewing experience unforgettable. The other festival is the Rose Festival, Chandigarh, that happens every year at Zakir Hussain Rose Garden, Chandigarh. The time is February, and this event happens for 3 days every year. The 40-acre rose garden is planted with 800 plus different varieties of roses. It has hybrid tige rose, miniature rose, climber rose, green rose, blue rose, black rose, and more. One of the highlights of the flower show are roses named after famous world personalities, countries, states, fruits, etc. So one will find a rose named after Zakir Hussain, who was the former Indian president, Queen Elizabeth, John F. Kennedy, Delhi, America, apricot, cherry, and so on, making viewing the flowers a lot more fun and interesting. The next I would like to discuss the flower show that happens every year at Utti. Utti, there is a government botanical bird garden, and that this event happens in the month of May every year for 3 days. The flower show displays around 93 kinds of flowers and 42 kinds of potted flowering plants. The flowers on display are carnations, gerberas, liliums, alstroemeria, tulips, iris, orchids, dahlias, among others. The highlight of the show, apart from the displayed flowers, are eye-catching installations made from flowers, spices, vegetables, and fruits. We will also get to enjoy cultural and musical events and an opportunity to participate in various flower decoration competitions, etc. etc. The next flower show I would like to discuss is Dasara flower show that happens every year at Nisad Bagh, Mysore. And this flower show is organized every year in the month of September or October for 12 days. Marvel at huge varieties of roses and orchids displayed artistically along with flower concepts like Ikebana, etc. Another major attraction of this show are beautiful formations made from flowers like the lotus temple, tree house, dolphins, etc. One can enjoy musical fountains, flower arrangement, competition, food festival, art exhibition, elephant processions, and a lot more. International Flower Festival always happens at Gangtok in India in the month of April or May every year for 30 days. This is considered one of the best and must-see flower festivals in India. The White Hall in Gangtok at this time is an array of colors and indescribable beauty with rare and great varieties of native orchids, rhododendrons, magnolias, gladioli, foliage, and ferns on display. There are traditional Sikkimese dances, local arts and crafts exhibitions, whitewater rafting, local food festivals, yak safari, and lots more. Every year, more than 300,000 visitors visit for this festival. Always happens at Gangtok in India in the month of April or May every year for 30 days. This is considered one of the best and must-see flower festivals in India. The White Hall in Gangtok at this time is an array of colors and indescribable beauty with rare and great varieties of native orchids, rhododendrons, magnolias, gladioli, foliage, and ferns on display. There are traditional Sikkimese dances, local arts and crafts exhibitions, whitewater rafting, local food festivals, yak safari, and lots more. Every year, more than 300,000 visitors visit for this International Flower Festival. The next I would like to discuss about Cherry Blossom Festival that happens every year in the month of November in Shillong, India. Every year in November, the streets of Shillong are a striking spectacle thanks to the fully bloomed cherry blossom trees. This festival is also celebrated in Japan and United States. This festival features guided night walks, fashion shows, rock concerts, stalls showcasing local food, wine and craft, and even Japanese cultural events. So these are the very, very important flower festivals that is happening every year in India. The other flower festivals that I would like to discuss is Lal Bagh Flower Show that happens every year in the month of Bangalore, in the month of you can say like January and August in Bangalore in India. This flower festival happens twice in a year on Republic and Independence Day of India. Both events are held for a week time during the month of January and August every year. On display are over 1,000 species of well-maintained tropical plants, spell-binding flower arrangements, some of which are in the shape of palisades, monuments, royal animals, and more based on the patriotic theme of the events. In 2019, Lal Bagh Flower Show was based on Mahatma Gandhi owing to his 150th birth anniversary. So I have discussed around 7 important flower festivals that is happening every year in India. But these are not only like festivals that is happening in India. There are some other festivals also happens in India apart from these festivals, and those festivals are celebrated every year in a special community, tribal community, something like that in India. But these are not only like festivals that is happening in India. There are some other festivals also happens in India apart from these festivals, and those festivals are celebrated every year in a special community, tribal community, something like that, such as Sarhul or Basant Mahotsav that happens every year in Jharkhand. The flowers are very important and they're used in different functions in India every day, such as for worshipping purpose, in wedding functions, or welcoming someone, or showing respect, etc., etc. Flowers are also play a vital role in the art. At international level, we can find many well-known artists, starting from Renaissance to modern to contemporary. They have used flower paintings and depicted flowers to show love, compassion, respect, peace, and tranquility. In our upcoming International Art Exhibition in Malaysia in May 2022, some of the artists from different countries such as Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, and India, they have made flower paintings to display. So finally, I would like to give my sincere thanks to organizer of this international conference, and I would like to give my best wishes to them for a very successful event. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Srivastava, for your informative presentation when it comes to flora in India. I know that India is a very rich, has very rich in flora and nature, and I would be really interested to someday visit your country. And with that, from our last speaker, we can now proceed with the Q&A portion of the plenary.
Yes, okay. So for our speakers from that plenary, we have here Mr. Selim and Miss Bernadette Cooper, yes, who are with us here live. Okay, so we actually have a question for Mr. Selim. Okay, let me just read the question here. Okay, so thank you, Selim, for such a wonderful talk. May we know for what reason or reasons would buyers buy a tulip for the price of 5 hectares? So I think you mentioned that in your talk earlier.
Well, yes, because as I mentioned, Holland or Netherlands profited from tulips most that time, and I think if you buy a tulip bulb in exchange of some lands, then you can grow more tulips, and practically that can bring you business. So economy was more on relying on the tulips that time. So I think that's the practical reason over there. So I give you land, you give me the seed, so I can plant in another place and I can grow more of them, so I can be rich as well. So as far as I read, that's the reason.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Selim. I think that did answer the question from our audience. Okay, so for the next question, I think Gab, there's a question from Miss Bernadette.
All right, I'll read a question from the audience for Miss Bernadette. So, Miss Bernadette, outside the Rose Flower Festival, do roses have a place in the day-to-day life of California residents?
Can you repeat the last sentence of the last set? Yeah.
Yes,
the last line of the question, please.
No problem. So, do roses have a place in the day-to-day life of California residents?
Oh, yes. Every day, even myself, we always have fresh flowers on the table because we only get that from the garden. So the rose plays a very, very significant part in the lives of the people here in California and the United States, because it's something that brings a different aura when you are there, when the roses are there. And more importantly, the roses are the ones that serve a welcoming day for the people in the house if they get something from the garden. So they pick the roses only from the garden. And then aside from that, even if they go to the park or that rose garden or anywhere you go, there's always an abundance of roses. And the small roses that we have in the Philippines, for instance, those, and then we what do you call this, we make that into a band to make it a bouquet. Here, those small roses seem to be wildflowers only. So that's how it is. So yes, there are always roses on the table in every household if they have a garden in the backyard.
Yes, I can see that roses are really significant in the lives of California residents, and I do agree that that roses have a really aesthetic value in anywhere they can.
Mm-hmm.
So we have another question. So Charisse, you may take the sword.
Before that, we would like to acknowledge Mr. Sushil Srivastava, who's also here with us today, so he can also answer your questions if you have more questions. So actually, now we have a question for all three of our speakers. So to Ms. Bernadette, to Mr. Selim, and to Mr. Sushil, what advice can you give to the people here in the Philippines so that they can emulate the country you represent when it comes to the development of flora? So again, what advice can you give the people here in the Philippines so that they can emulate the country you represent when it comes to the development of flora? So who would like to answer first? Maybe Ms. Bernadette?
Grow flowers in your backyard and even in your front yard. It's something that will not only give the aesthetic value, but it's something that will represent the place as a place that is being well kept, and then a place that will emulate peace. Flowers emulate peace, and flowers are something that can bring good what they call this a good feeling, actually a good feeling. In anywhere, in any occasions, or in anywhere you go, you always give flowers. Their birthday flowers, for birthdays, flowers for Mother's Day, for funeral, graduation, etc., etc., because the flower speaks all kinds of emotions. So if you can at least plant flowers in your backyards and your front yard, that is something that will really speak of some good emotions, good vibes. It brings good vibes.
Thank you, Ms. Bernadette. So who would like to go next? Mr. Selim or Mr. Sushil?
Yeah, I would like to advise that everyone should grow and plant the flowers as much as possible. And if it is possible to include in your daily activities, so it would be better. For example, in India, like whenever there is any kind of function, so we include flowers. Rose flowers or lily flowers. So depending upon the situation, we include those kind of flowers to celebrate wedding functions or to host someone or to respect someone. So something like that, it can be done also in the Philippines. And I found that in the Philippines, those kind of flowers are available and those kind of flowers are used also. So this kind of activities should be also involved in day-to-day operation, something like that. So this is my advice to if you're talking about going for the emulation, whatever we are doing in India, so it can be done also in the Philippines. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sushil. How about you, Mr. Selim?
Well, I'm not a botanist, but I can say from my experiences that I've been in the Philippines for 9 years, and I love the country, to be honest. Like, the culture, the atmosphere, the nature here. As long as I can go out Manila. So, as a common person who is living in Manila, I usually complain how we have little amount of green or parks in here. I stayed in South Korea as an exchange student, and I remember there was a flower park over there. They even put up games over there that you have to look for secret stamps. In hidden in gardens, hidden in between flowers and everything. So we used to go there with my college friends, and we participate in activities over there. In Turkey, we talked about tulip gardens, the festival over there. And Netherlands, of course, very well known for their gardens, for their picture takings and everything. Disneyland, same thing, doing the same thing. I remember in Changi airport in Singapore, there was a garden for sunflowers, and sadly, I cannot think of any landmark like this in Philippines, or at least in Manila. I hope it's not inappropriate for me to name a place in here, but the closest place I can think of with flowers is Sonia's garden in Tagaytay, and it's always traffic to go there. But when I visited there, I especially love I can see some variety of flowers over there. Unless I can go to province, so I hope that there might be a landmark, a significant place in central Manila also, or maybe there is, and I don't know. So if that's the case, please let me know, and that we can say this is a good place to visit, to see different kinds of varieties of flowers that we can see that they grow in the Philippines. I know the city is crowded, and there may not be enough place around, but perhaps UP can spare some space. I mean, to grow such a project, and I will definitely be one of the first ones to visit the flower and take pictures probably over there.
Thank you so much, Mr. Salim, and to Miss Bernadette, and to Mr. Sushil. So to the Pinoys and the Pinays here, you heard it from them. If you guys want tips on how to really emulate, the culture of the rich culture of floral traditions here in Manila, then you know what to do. Okay, thank you again so much to our speakers. So we have one last question. So it is for Miss Bernadette Cooper. So Miss Bernadette Cooper, so this is from Miss Celia Bonilla. So I saw Yellow Rose, a film starring Filipinos Eva Noblezada, Princess Punzalan, and Lea Salonga, though it was set in Texas. Metaphorically, it stood for the Filipina girl finding her place in the US. But are there really yellow rose in Texas?
Yes. There are. As I have shown also, there are also yellow roses here. As I have shown in my presentation, that's one of the species being grown here. As a matter of fact, the biggest rose that is grown in that rose garden happens to be the yellow rose. It's true. It's true, because in the Philippines, maybe the reason why she asked that is she from the Philippines? Is she from the Philippines? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Kasi sa Philippines, if you see different colors of flowers, the roses are only what they call this, usually colored either red or pink, but the other colors seem to be very unnatural, because in the Philippines, just like if you buy flowers from Dangwa and you see different colors, those are dyed flowers. Here you don't dye the flowers. You grow the different species and the different colors of the flowers. Yes, there are yellow roses.
Thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Miss Bernadette. All right, so that ends our Q&A portion for this plenary session. So again, to our speakers, thank you so much for your time. It's amazing to see the similarities among the floral traditions and cultures from the different parts of the world. We have the May Queen, the Rose Queen, the Capitana, the floral parade, displays and shows. Flowers really are an excellent source of tangible and intangible cultural heritage all around the world. And we are fortunate enough to have witnessed this morning. So before we proceed with the next segment, we at the Faura Project would like to show our appreciation to our speakers through the certificate of appreciation. So allow me to read the citation. Okay, so the Faura project incorporated with Philippine Botanical Art Society and the University of the Philippines, Manila present the Certificate of Appreciation to Cosette Griffin Kramer for speaking on French Lily of the Valley festivities, to Yavuz Salem Sironoglu for speaking on Istanbul Tulip Festival, to Bernadette Escalona Cooper for speaking on Rose Flower Festival, and to Sushil Srivastava for speaking on Indian Flower Festival, given the second day of May 2022 during the conference plenary on World Floral Festivals during the 2022 International Flores de Mayo Festival and Conference, signed by Dr. Honey Libertine Achanzar-Labor, Miss Willa Famoso-Takan, and Professor Alice Adeva. So again, thank you so much to our speakers. So may we ask you please to turn on your camera so that we can take a quick picture to commemorate this event. So Mr. Sushil and Miss Bernadette, you can turn on your cameras. Yes, okay, let me just add you to the spotlight. Okay, so let's smile. 1, 2, 3, smile. Oh, wait. Again, another one. 1, 2, 3, smile. All right, thank you so much to our speakers.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so now we are at the tail end of our morning session, and for this part of the program, we would like to let you guys know about what we have in store for you guys for the rest of the week. Okay, so let me present the week-long festival to you guys at this portion of this program. Okay, so I think we can skip through the parts that already happened. So we can skip through the morning part of the day 1. So next slide, please. Okay, but later on this afternoon at 2:15 p.m., we have the Celebrating Heroes and Heritage Endemic Flowers. So I won't be spoiling you about what we have in store for you guys later, but I guess just as a teaser, we have Dr. Rosario Rubita here with us right now, who will also be the session chair and the session moderator for later session. So guys, be excited, especially for the UP Manila students here. You know Dr. Rubita and you know how excellent she is, especially in terms of endemic flowers. So yes, we are very excited for that. And then for tomorrow, we have the second part of this series. So the Celebrating Heroes and Heritage, Painting and Myth Advocates, and then the third part of this series, the Dance Advocates. So wow, from the flowers that we discussed today, we're moving on to the Painting and Myth Advocates and then Dance Advocates. But of course, at the core of these sessions is still, our theme for this Flores de Mayo festival, which is still the flora, still the traditions that we have here in the country and outside the country. Okay, so next slide, please. And for day 3, we have the on-site painting exhibit entitled Celebrating Native Flowers in the Time of the Pandemic. So this is actually, as I said, this is on-site, so this will be done face-to-face. This will be in the Unimart of Capital Commons in Pasig, if I'm not mistaken. So this will be at 2 p.m. But for those who can't make it, we will be live on Facebook on Wednesday at 2 p.m. so that you can watch the exhibit opening with us. Okay, so this is in collaboration with Artist Space and the Philippine Botanical Artist Society. So for day 4, this is a lot of people's favorite part of our week-long festival. So on day 4, we will be having our painting and crafting endemic flowers workshop. So yes, we will be painting and we will be sketching, we will be drawing endemic flowers on Thursday. So this is again in partnership with the Philippine Botanical Artist Society. So I think Miss Bing Famoso was here with us earlier, but I don't think she's here anymore. But yes, she will be one of the workshop artists with us on Feast Day. Okay, and on day 5, which is our closing program, our last day of the week-long festival, we will be having our Dress Up Santa Cruzan. So that's a very exciting event, and we also started that actually last year. So as Professor Achanzar-Labor mentioned earlier, it's kind of like a fashion show. It's our version of the Santa Cruzan, the online version of the Santa Cruzan. So you can expect to see very exciting and very interesting outfits from our participants on Friday. And of course, along with this, we'll also be premiering the Memories of Faura and the Faura Trails videos also on Friday. So yes, that's it for our week-long festival, and we can't wait to have all of you there in all of the activities that we have for the rest of the week. So for all the online activities, we will be using the same Zoom link. So if you already have the one for today, then you can already access the ones for the next month. Okay, so now to cap off our morning session, let me call on again Professor Honey Libertine Achanzar-Labor for the plenary closing.
All right. So this time live. So yes, thank you all for joining us in this morning opening and plenary sessions. No? So in this year's Flores de Mayo Festival and Conference, and in the years to come, we continue and will continue to promote local heritage, maybe the intangible cultural heritage of the Flores de Mayo, endemic flora, as well as art and craft production, which promote heritage. No? But this year, we see that we saw that we share our much valued local heritage to participants from different parts of the globe, as we also provide them a platform to showcase stone, not only for us at the Faura project, but also for everyone who has been supporting our cause all throughout this year. So thank you all for your continued support, and particular thanks to this morning's speakers who have graciously accepted our invite to join us in our annual promotion of local heritage and its conservation. So special thanks for speakers representing France, Turkey, India, and the US. For Mr. Salim and also for Mr. Sushil to show us that not only are we representing flowers of different countries, but also that flowers are actually things of worship. No? That just in the Philippines, we have the Flores de Mayo, which is a Christian event. We also have we see how tulips in Turkey is also symbolic of Allah, so it's also very much in tune with the Islamic belief. And Mr. Sushil also mentioned earlier, how flowers in India are actually objects for worship. So thank you for that. So to show the different dimensions of our celebrating flowers. But not only do we see it from all parts of the world, but also how it is very much at the heart of celebrating belief, our worship. And of course, with Dr. Cooper, Bernadette, in which she said that flowers has no is for and beliefs. So once again, let us continue to celebrate flowers, and we see that flowers simply make us smile and rejoice. So good morning. Good morning. We're about to end the morning session, and we hope to see you again this afternoon for our first session in celebrating heroes, both in endemic flowers and in the arts. So Cha and Gab.
Thank you so much, Dr. Achanzar-Labor. Okay, so wow, what a great start to our our week-long festival and conference. So before we end our morning session, we would like to request everyone here today to scan the QR code, which will be flashed right now. Yes, okay. While we're waiting for that, or you can click the link sent at the Zoom chat to access our evaluations form. So please take note that only those who have answered the evaluation form can request for a certificate of attendance. So we will be giving you access to the link right now. So it's there in the Zoom chat. Okay, so now we are really at the end of the morning session. So again, thank you so much to our speakers and to our audience for joining us here today. So we will be having our lunch break until 2:10 p.m. Yeah, 2:10 p.m. But if you can come here earlier, of course, the better. So you can opt to stay in the Zoom room or leave and then come back again later. So please take note again that we will be using the same Zoom room for later session as well. All right. So happy lunch. Happy lunch, everyone, or happy breakfast, happy dinner, happy snack time, wherever you are. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Dr. Labor, Dr. Rubite. Thanks to the speaker.
Yes, thank you all. Thank you to our speakers, and
Thank you.
also hats off to our two moderators. Yes, good job, guys.
Thank you to the moderators too.